Hello, my loves. Continue to update new stories on Reddit, and don't forget if you like it, please subscribe and like it. Now let's start new stories. Story: I, at 28F, have been seeing my ex, 33M, and don't know if I should break it off or try to fix things. Ex 38 years old and I am 28 years old were in a long-term relationship that was majorly toxic. Both parties contributed to constant fighting, abusive threats, emotional manipulation, psychological abuse, cheating, etc. throughout the duration of this relationship. Before you write this story off and make the obvious comment that this relationship is unhealthy, just hear me out and put yourself in my shoes. I really love this man and in a lot of ways will always love this man. However, after years of putting up with toxicity and selfishness from him, I had finally had enough. Long story short, we moved out on our own and parted ways, except we never actually stopped talking or seeing each other. We go through phases where everything is wonderful and then I'll find out that he's been looking for new connections on dating apps. When this happens, I tend to wander off and start talking to new people as well. Both of us act like this is unacceptable behavior even though we are not technically in an exclusive relationship. He will tell me how much he loves me and then when we spend time together it seems like all we do is bicker or make jabs at each other. On top of that, there hasn't been any physical intimacy in weeks and he is pushing and pressuring me into it. I feel uncomfortable with this, but he makes a very fair claim that his physical intimacy is an important factor for him. It's clear that the correct answer is to break up and go no contact, but for some reason I just can't seem to do it. I clearly love him very much even if I'm not completely emotionally invested in the relationship right now, and we don't seem to be meeting one another's needs. I also don't trust his words because they don't seem to always match his actions. I truly don't know what to do or how to get through this. We have been terrible to one another and I feel this immense guilt in both leaving and staying. My friends and family can't stand him and vice versa. Does any of this stand a chance? I feel insane even asking this, but at the end of the day I love this man. Any advice, words of wisdom or commisery is welcomed. Ex and I had a toxic relationship but can't stop seeing each other. He ruined the relationship and I ruined the breakup. I feel like I'm either stuck in a cycle of abuse or that maybe I am the abuser. Story: I don't want a relationship with my sister, what do I do? My brother is associating with our half-sister, I don't care to, and it's becoming uncomfortable. I'm typically pretty loquacious, so I'll try to cut it down. I am 38 years old, grew up with both my parents, and 36 years old my younger brother. My dad was married before my mom and had 2 kids, a son and a daughter, both of whom are about 10 years older than me. Not super relevant, but my parents divorced when I was in college. My understanding is that my dad wasn't perfect, but his ex was vindictive and fed my half-siblings a bunch of crap so they'd hate him, which worked for a while. Eventually, my half-bro reconciled. I guess my half-sis did to some extent, because I met her and her husband when I was a teen. It was easy to form a friendship of sorts with my half-brother because we had similar interests. I think his sister never fully came around to my dad, which, whatever. Reader's Digest version is that I have a fine relationship with half-bro and, for most of my life, no contact with his sister. Recently, my younger brother got all 4 of us together. It was a fine time. I enjoy hanging out with my brothers and the half-sister seemed fine enough, besides lightly shit-talking my dad, despite not talking to him for decades. Her son was super nice and I thought we all had a good time. At the end of the night, I was completely blindsided by her suggesting we should have a heart-to-heart of sorts. I know my younger brother had a convo with her about. I honestly don't know what, but anyway. I have no investment in that relationship. I absolutely meant no offense, but I told her I didn't feel it was necessary, but we could if it would make her happy. I definitely admit that that seems a bit harsh, but I didn't intend it to be. I have no problem with her, but I also don't have the emotional and mental bandwidth right now to try to form a new relationship, let alone one I don't care about. And I don't feel compelled to put myself out for it. I'm nearly 40, she's never made an attempt at a relationship before and that's fine. I only mean to say that she didn't spend her life pining for a relationship with her half-sister, and that absolutely does not hurt my feelings. She was evidently very offended. My younger brother invited me to another gathering, and while I'd love to go, I don't want to deal with her. She's rather dramatic and I anticipate an issue with us both being there. My ideal scenario is getting her to understand that we are basically strangers, and I like hanging out with her, but we're not family and I don't care for us to be. Kind of makes the gathering complicated. For what it's worth, I understand how this sounds, but I hold no animosity towards her. It is truly complete indifference, and I have too much on my plate right now to feign caring. So, I'm not sure how to proceed with the invite. Story: I'm starting to catch feelings for my boyfriend's friend. My boyfriend, who is 12 years older than me, doesn't really work hard for us. He just works for his father's business and go in whenever while I work at a restaurant serving, and his best friend works hard, so I feel like he would make a great partner. Me 20 years old and my boyfriend 32 years old have been together for almost a year now. We do get a lot of comments about our age difference, which is a little bigger than I'd prefer, but we are both very traditional. Where I live it's hard to find a guy that's trad, so I instantly fell for him. At first we had a lot of fun and I wasn't really staying with him all that often. I live an hour away, so it was kinda hard to make time for staying with him with my work schedule and such. My hours got cut at my part-time job, so as I've been looking for a new job I've been staying with him a lot more. I ended up getting a serving job in his town so I could spend more time with him because he truly does have a lot going on with his father being sick and some court situation. Ever since I started staying with him I really got to see the real him. His father owns the business he works for, so he does as he pleases pretty much. We sometimes won't roll out of bed and start our days till 1 p.m. on a weekday. It sorta put a bad taste in my mouth because I told him he could leave me here alone and that it was totally okay, I'd clean up the house for him. He just doesn't work at all whenever I'm here and he doesn't do much around the house, which would be okay if he was working, but he just sorta runs around all day doing little stuff. Although, his dad is in a wheelchair and does need some assistance with certain things, but it doesn't take all day, and his father even said, "When will you start working regularly again?" We've been hanging out with one of his good friends a lot recently who does blue-collar work and has been a Marine before. The more we see him the more my heart sort of grows this feeling towards him. I would never cheat, but knowing he works hard long hours is a green flag in my eyes, and I feel with my traditional beliefs that he would be a great father and husband willing to work for his family and care for them. He is super respectful and has a big heart. I love my boyfriend now, but in a way he is very feminine, he doesn't really work much, and he also is very obsessed with how he looks, and not in a good way. As I'm at my serving job there for hours on end, I'll check his location and he will still be at the house. I've met a lot of guys who make sure they look presentable, but he is always primping in every single mirror he passes. He will give me his phone and ask me to take photos of him, and I don't mind doing it, but I just feel like on my heart this isn't who I should start my family with because he's so worried about him and never me or others, it's him all the time. He is selfish at times and I'm trying to bring him back down to earth, but I'm starting to give up. I feel terrible because every time we see his friend I can't help but imagine what it would be like with him. He is a very sweet and caring, humble guy. I just am wondering, should I stop bringing myself around him when he is with my boyfriend? Or should I tell my boyfriend he doesn't seem manly enough for me? I am worried about hurting his feelings. Story: How to bond with my boyfriend's 32M friends, including his ex, without letting it affect our relationship. My boyfriend, 32 years old, and I am 29 years old, have been together for about a year and recently moved in together. He's been connecting with his friends after a year and a half of distancing due to mental health issues. One of his friends is his ex-girlfriend, who had a toxic end to their relationship. She recently sent him an emotional email, and I suspect she might still have feelings for him, which makes me uncomfortable. He reassured me there's nothing to worry about, but I want advice on how to bond with his friends and navigate this situation without letting it affect our relationship. I'm 29 years old and my boyfriend is 32 years old. We started to date sometime around this month last year. Found each other on a South Asian dating app. We had a fair share of ups and few downs, but we love each other to bits. Loyal to each other, and we want to start a life together. We recently moved in together as well, and our parents are supportive of this. My boyfriend was not doing okay mentally for quite some time and distanced himself from his friends for about a year and a half. Completely absent without leave. They tried reaching out but gave him space. One of the persons from the friend group was his ex-girlfriend. They dated for about 2 years. It got really toxic towards the end from what he told me, since she started to force him into marriage very early on during the relationship as she was 3 to 4 years older to him. Although he liked her, he wasn't ready for a lifetime commitment, especially if it was that forced. He tried to tell her, but she never really understood, would also sometimes cry about her ex whilst living with him. She couldn't secure a job, so no financial support to pay rent, so she asked to live with him even after he decided to part ways with her. He agreed since it was a tough time for everyone. Some forms of intimacy continued, but he expressed the discomfort he was facing that this was happening and that it's not good for either of their mental state if they decided to part ways. She then moved out, but reached out to him to give it another chance, and this time with no pressure of marriage. Skip. She now is married to a dude who she found through a dating app. We also recently met his friends, after he broke 1 year of long-lost silence with them. Everyone's extremely happy to see him and angry for ghosting. Basically everyone expressed happiness because they were meeting me for the first time, but I didn't see any kind of emotions from his ex-GF who was also present there with her husband. She only spoke about food with me, didn't try to get to know me at all. She just asked him how he was. Basically very minimal talks and emotions. Apparently, just a year back, she sent him another huge email, expressing how she terribly missed him, how she missed his laughter and late-night talks, missed having him in his life. That he should stop ghosting her and talk and still be great best friends with her, how they used to be. I can't help but think that she still has feelings for him, and that is somehow not sitting very well with me. Especially now that we'll be hanging out with the gang often. I don't want to let this affect anything because he really needs his friends, and so do I need this social connection. I have no complaints about my BF. He's the greenest flag out there. He is extremely honest about everything, and I expressed this to him. He saw where I was coming from and rest assured me that we have no control over this and to not let this affect me. I will try to heed to that, but I just want to know if I'm crazy to think this about her. Story, I.F. 30, don't know how to cope with my boyfriend, M. 41, of 2 years and his inability to grasp reality. I'm 30 years old, struggling to cope with what I believe is my boyfriend, ex-boyfriend's, 41 years old, lack of a full sense of reality. To provide some context, this all started about 2 years ago, 3 months after we started dating, when he had an episode of acute psychosis and committed himself under the Baker Act. He was afraid of people breaking in the windows and thought someone had broken into his roommate's room, so he broke down his roommate's door. Since then, he has been functioning relatively well and appears to be of sound mind in casual conversations. However, he has occasionally mentioned that he still sees shadow beings but has learned to live with them. He doesn't want to discuss this further because he fears being labeled crazy. He also reaches conclusions that make no sense and refuses to listen to me or accept any evidence that contradicts his beliefs. The most notable and persistent example is his belief that I supply weed to the local dealer I have bought small amounts from before. Despite having no reason to think this and me offering proof and even sharing my GPS location, he refuses to believe me. He doesn't believe almost anything I say, which is stressful and odd. When I was recently in the hospital, he didn't believe what I told him the doctor said either. I'm fed up with being treated this way and constantly being accused of lying. I've told him to stay away multiple times, which is why I referred to him as my boyfriend, ex-boyfriend. However, he shows up anyway, acting as if it's a normal day. If I tell him to leave, he refuses and just sits on the couch, knowing I can't physically make him leave. Recently, he's been talking about missing his family out of state. I've encouraged him to go be with them, as it seems he takes out a lot of his negative emotions on me and might be happier there. But he responds that he'll do what he wants, either staying or going, and won't be chased off by me. I really don't know how to cope with any of this. I'm 30 years old, struggling with my boyfriend, ex-boyfriend's, 41 years old, disconnection from reality. After an episode of acute psychosis 2 years ago, he still sees shadow beings and holds irrational beliefs, like thinking I supply weed to a local dealer. He refuses to believe anything I say, even about my recent hospital visit. Despite telling him to stay away, he shows up and refuses to leave. He misses his out-of-state family, and I've encouraged him to go, but he insists on doing what he wants and won't be chased off. I don't know how to cope with this situation. I neglected to mention that his mother has been diagnosed as bipolar, so I often wonder if any of this behavior from him are symptoms of bipolar. I have attempted to bring this up to him, but he shuts me down and won't even consider the possibility. Story, I feel like my best friend, 21M, is jealous of my GF, 21F, and I don't know if I should keep being friends with him. Hello everyone, I am 21 years old, have a best friend 21 years old, and we have been friends since high school, so for about 5 years. He has gone to a different country, but he still visits pretty often, so we get to see each other every 2 to 3 months. My friend is gay, and I am a straight man. At the same time, I have a girlfriend 21 years old who I have been dating for 3 years. He doesn't really support our relationship because he thinks that since I started dating her we don't really spend time. Which isn't exactly true, but it did play some sort of role. We obviously used to spend more time together when we went to school every day and had nothing to do versus now would I have a relationship and I live with my GF and also I have a full-time job which takes most of my day. I never thought that he was jealous of my girlfriend, but lately when I took a deeper look into his behavior, I noticed that he is acting sort of strange. Firstly, he dislikes my girlfriend even though she did nothing to him. In fact, she even baked cinnamon rolls for him once when he came over to our flat. After that, he did not even say thank you to her, which sort of offended me. Secondly, when I told him that I went on a trip for my GF's birthday, he didn't seem happy for me at all. He did not ask me how it was, all he said was that he wanted to go on a trip with me and asked me why I didn't go with him instead. I honestly was surprised by his reaction because I wouldn't have reacted this way to my friend. Thirdly, he often makes remarks about my body and jokingly insinuates that I should break up with my GF. When I confronted him about all of this, he said that he has no problem with my GF, but he thinks that I don't spend enough time with him. I don't know what to think of these, but he is the only friend I have in the city, which makes me feel even more alone. I feel like he doesn't value me as a friend and he has weird motives towards me. My best friend of 5 years is acting strange towards me and my relationship and seems like he is jealous of my girlfriend. Story: should I let go? I am tired. I have attachment issues and my BF has commitment issues. He also did something that betrayed my trust, and although I decided to forgive him I am struggling. Hi everybody. I 23 years old been dating my boyfriend 27 years old for more than 3 years now. We really love each other and I really do want to marry him someday. I know he feels the same way. But throughout our relationship, we've had many problems that made almost break up many times. At the beginning of the relationship I developed anxiety and starting depending on him too much. We've worked through it and now it's much better, but it's still there. I always want to see him more than he wants to see me. I want out to move together and he doesn't want to yet. I live alone and he still lives with his parents, so he first wants to live alone and is looking for an apartment. I understand his reasons, but I am always feeling like I want more and he wants less, and makes me feel unloved even though I know he adores me. On the other hand, he has commitment issues, started therapy and is getting better, but it always hurts when he hesitates on giving a step forward. But then, when everything started getting better, a friend of mine found him on Tinder once. I talked to him about it and he said he and his friends had downloaded it only one night to look for people for a pregame before a party, which I know is true because he did it before we dated, but I had specifically told him not to do it anymore since it made me feel unrespected. I took this really badly and started having trust issues. We've been working together on it since then, but it's been 6 months and I still don't truly trust him. But I took the decision to forgive him and move on. We've really been doing better and communicating a lot. However, after 3 years and so much trouble and fights, I start to wonder if someday we will be at peace and happy. Don't get me wrong, I am really happy when I am with him and with the life we share. It really is amazing. It feels like amovi. But when we start arguing or when I feel insecure, my whole world crumbles. I really need some empathy here. Story: I, 28F, don't know how to mend my relationship with my ex, 33M. Ex 33 years old and I am 28 years old. We're in a long-term relationship that was majorly toxic. Both parties contributed to constant fighting, abusive threats, emotional manipulation, psychological abuse, cheating, etc. throughout the duration of this relationship. Before you write this story off and make the obvious comment that this relationship is unhealthy, just hear me out and put yourself in my shoes. I really love this man and in a lot of ways will always love this man. However, after years of putting up with toxicity and selfishness from him, I had finally had enough. Long story short, we moved out on our own and parted ways, except we never actually stopped talking or seeing each other. We go through phases where everything is wonderful and then I'll find out that he's been looking for new connections on dating apps. When this happens, I tend to wander off and start talking to new people as well. Both of us act like this is unacceptable behavior even though we are not technically in an exclusive relationship. He will tell me how much he loves me, and then when we spend time together it seems like all we do is bicker or make jabs at each other. On top of that, there hasn't been any physical intimacy in weeks and he is pushing and pressuring me into it. I feel uncomfortable with this, but he makes a very fair claim that physical intimacy is an important factor for him. It's clear that the correct answer is to break up and go no contact, but for some reason I just can't seem to do it. I clearly love him very much even if I'm not completely emotionally invested in the relationship right now, and we don't seem to be meeting one another's needs. I also don't trust his words because they don't seem to always match his actions. I truly don't know what to do or how to get through this. We have been terrible to one another and I feel this immense guilt in both leaving and staying. My friends and family can't stand him and vice versa. Any advice on how to leave, get over this, or even fix this is encouraged. Ex and I had a toxic relationship but can't stop seeing each other. He ruined the relationship and I ruined the breakup. I feel like I'm either stuck in a cycle of abuse or that maybe I am the abuser. Story: mentally drained from family, so problems. I can't take it. How do I make it stop? I am 31 years old, felt like I had a nearly perfect life. And I was always seen as the perfect daughter. Then I met my first boyfriend 30 years old and it felt like he made my life better. And then it went downhill. I'm not sure if I need advice or just moral support, I just feel overwhelmed. I keep having fights with him and my parents in their 60s, and most often than not I am not the initiator, and I hate it because it's like I'm never allowed to have peace anymore. If my isn't picking fights with me, it's my parents picking fights with me about him. I feel helpless, drained, and like I want to cry. I don't know what to do. My heart aches. It's like the only time I'm truly happy now is at work when I'm away from everyone I love. My parents told me they hate him, they can't stand him, they want me to dump him, and they say he's going to ruin my life. It doesn't matter what he does, they find a way to criticize him and remind me of how much they hate him. I've been with him nearly 2 years, is constantly thinking negative about them and has insulted them to my face. We've had big fights over this when he has episodes. And I don't think he likes them much in general anymore. The truth is I love a lot and he does make me happy, even if my posts don't always reflect it. I love being in his arms. He's my best friend. And I miss him when we're apart. We have fun together and he does try to take care of me. But he has some mental health struggles and that's led to emotional abuse toward me during episodes, and that makes me miserable. It got really bad. Long story, something happened that my parents got involved, and while the situation between me and has since improved, his episodes are less and he's worked to improve their relationship with him is strained. My relationship with my parents in turn is not as good as it was because I've stand up for him when I thought my parents were being unfair, just like I've stood up for them when I thought he was being unfair. This is getting to be too much. I feel depressed. I feel drained. Anxious. Everyone is breaking my heart. I want peace. Can it get better? How can I find peace? What can I do? I feel hopeless. My parents and BF don't like each other and they all keep picking fights with me, making me miserable. What can I do to make it stop? Story: my M29 girlfriend, F29, is continually getting upset at me. I am 29 years old, recently began seeing a girl 27 years old from Mexico. Lately, I dread going out with her because there's always an issue. This week, I added her to my gym membership and yesterday invited her to go work out together. We were supposed to meet outside at around 5:30 p.m., but she didn't arrive until about 6:15 p.m., and since she doesn't have a phone right now, I had to wait outside the entire time. After our workout, I went to change while she finished jogging. She asked if I was going to take a shower because she was, and I said no. I asked if she minded if I waited next door at a bar where my friends work at, assuming she'd be 20 to 30 minutes, but she got annoyed, so I waited outside the changing room for her. After 15 minutes, she came out, and I suggested an Uber to her place. She got mad we weren't going to the bar next door. I explained I thought she'd be longer, which is the only reason I mentioned it, and didn't mind going, but that I couldn't stay late as I needed to be up early. She gave me attitude and was dismissing me, so I just ordered the Uber. At her place, I stayed longer to let her cool down, and we talked outside. She accused me of not wanting to be seen with her and not communicating properly. I explained I never planned to go out after the gym and had told her I wouldn't be able to stay out late. She accused me of lying since it was 10:45 p.m., saying we had time to go out the bar. I told her I stayed to let her cool down and talk and that I originally planned to be home by 9 p.m. because I'm usually asleep by 9 p.m. and wake at 5 a.m. We talked for almost an hour, and when I went to call a taxi, she accused me of always running away whenever we talk. I explained I had to be up early and she insisted she knew that and wasn't trying to keep me. I eventually called the taxi and left, getting home after 12 p.m. and did not fall asleep until after 1 a.m. I don't know what to do anymore. No matter what I do, she finds something to be upset about. Do I just end the relationship? Or is it this salvageable? The following are just a few of the things she's accused me of or gotten upset over. Got upset after our first date because she saw me out with a female friend a week later. Got upset when I invited her to my place to go for a walk in a nearby park to see a lake she said she wanted to visit. Supposedly I wasn't respecting her integrity as a woman and people may get the wrong impression. This was before we were official. Upset that I wasn't picking her up and dropping her off for our dates, even though I don't drive. Didn't hold her hand while walking. I stopped by a bar after work where my friends work and she accused me of going there to spend time with my ex since she also works there, wasn't working there that night. Got upset when I told her I wish I could run my hand across her body supposedly after 2 months of seeing each other. That's too intimate of a thing to say. Got upset when I indicated that her skin tone was slightly darker than mine and she accused me of being racist towards South Americans after she was just comparing the fact that I get sunburnt and she doesn't. Walked ahead of her after an outdoor movie where I got bitten over 40 times by mosquitoes. I wanted out of there. My girlfriend is continually getting upset at me and accusing me of things. I really like her, but I'm at my wit's end. Story: friend didn't invite me to his wedding. My 30 years old friend, 29 years old, got married last month. He hadn't really shared much in terms of his wedding plans with me and I assumed was having a low-key event with just family, which is why I hadn't been invited and I was fine with that. Until he sent me a text apologizing for not inviting me and that the event was for family and friends only. His reasoning was that he couldn't invite me because then by extension he'd have to invite the rest of the community that we associate with. I told him family and friends only. Got it. We are Bengali and there is a large Bengali community where we live, but neither of us are really involved in the community. The only real participation is attending a funeral of a community member. I thought that was a weak, flimsy excuse considering our minimal involvement with the community, and then I heard from a mutual friend that a few community members were actually invited and attended as his father is a big member of the community. In addition, some of the other friends he invited are those he met not too long ago, 1 to 2 years versus knowing me for 20 years. As a grown man, I'm a bit ashamed to say that this hurt me quite a lot. I thought we were super close since we talk on a weekly basis, hang out often, and have been friends for 20 years. I have a small family and very few friends. I considered him one of my closest friends, and he would always tell me things like, I know you have a small family, but think of me and my family as your family. I feel like he could have invited me privately if he was worried about having to invite the community. Which he ended up doing anyway by inviting some members. Funnily enough, some community members were surprised that I wasn't there, and I told them I wasn't invited. My family was also hurt and offended by this situation and know his family very well. Friend still texts me on a weekly basis like nothing happened since we have many common interests. I hardly reply. Hoping for some advice on how to go about things. My close friend didn't invite me parents to his wedding but invited other friends and other community members. Story: BF flying out for 3 weeks, feeling extremely sad and nervous, how do I cope? My boyfriend 21 years old and me 20 years old have been together for nearly 6 months and 2 days from now. He is currently boarding his flight back to his home. He has not seen his family in years as he moved abroad at a young age. I am very happy he is getting to see his family, however I am extremely scared and nervous. We have fought a lot over stuff due to miscommunication, his expectations, some stuff I did or how we both hurt each other unknowingly due to both of our insecurities. This is also my first actual serious relationship where the end goal for both of us is marriage. I was in a relationship last year, but it was barely 3 months and my ex cheated. Me and my boyfriend did have a major fight, 3 consecutive fights, which lasted 2 weeks. One was my fault. It was something related to trust. The other 2 were ignited by him for either no exact reason, but the premise being I wasn't being a good listener and I was not working on myself. We both come from very different backgrounds, both financially and culturally, and we jumped into a relationship within 10 days of meeting, so this is all understandable. However, since the last fight, less than 2 weeks back I think, I did consider breaking up because of his tone and not being mature enough, but all the memories and everything came back. He apologized for his tone and behavior, promised to work on it while I promised to work on myself and our issues too. He said he would make sure I won't regret it. Now back to these few days, he suddenly needed to fly to his hometown as his parents kept insisting on wanting to see him while he was avoiding it. His cousin fell sick, so it triggered his parents to get him back home. He is now happy about going, and as much as I hate the fact we will be long distance for 3 weeks, our communication sorta sucks, lack of proper internet connectivity, and since he will be busy with traveling, health checkups, seeing family, it would be hard to keep in touch as much. I am a very emotional person, I have anxiety and ADHD and tend to overthink and go insane a lot. A little clingy too, I just love with passion. Now that he is flying out and I won't see him, I'm really sad. He used to sleep over 2 nights a week and sometimes we would see each other 3 to 4 times a week aside from daily FaceTimes or calls and sending reels. Just the fact we haven't gone more than a week without seeing each other, our communication compromised. My insecurity in him not texting as often or being as expressive since our fight is really making me go crazy. He did get me a plushie, let me take his hoodies, got me some kinky stuff for our time, and even spent the last 2 to 3 days with me since he had to fly out, and even started posting me on his close friends, something he never really did and only started doing it after our fight cause I always posted him on my spam and he knew I like it. He usually doesn't post stories often and is worried people will put a bad eye on us, but him not being as expressive on text makes it harder for me. He even told his roommates how life has become simpler and better for him cause I'm here and he is able to focus on work too. Though we fight so much, he cares about me and is always there through my mental health struggles, buys me courses to upskill in life and get ahead of my peers and everything. Earlier he used to send many paragraphs or voice notes, but now it's like I am the one texting first most times or him not opening messages till I double text and crap. And he won't say I love you as much as what I feel, though he does say it otherwise. He is not as expressive and admits it. All of this just scares me so much. He told me this isn't a goodbye and he will be back soon and promises we will make it way stronger than before. Yeah, I do get it, things don't necessarily stay the same after a fight, but I just need some sort of reassurance. What he says doesn't give me enough hope right now. My campus therapist said that it is a good time for us to know more about each other, manage the distance, and I get myself back on track to work on myself like I was hoping to do. But again, the overwhelming feelings and fears has made me go insane. Anyone has tips on how to manage my emotions and actually stop getting so damn emotional over this? Boyfriend of 6 months is flying out for 3 weeks and our communication may be strained. Past fights and instability is adding to my fears and insecurities, though we both vowed to make it work and become stronger. I need tips on how to work on managing my emotions, stop getting emotional and make it work. Story: my partner, 20M, and I, 21M, have different values. Should we break up? To get things straight, I love, respect my partner very much. We meet each other's emotional needs. Our communication is great, and we respect and unconditionally support each other. However, I'm deeply scared because of our radical differences in values. I'll provide brief examples to illustrate these differences. For instance, on family, he deeply values blood ties, while I believe family should be a unit made out of love that one can choose. He believes children must love their parents because they gave them life, while I think parents must earn a child's respect. We both want to have children, but for radically different reasons. He sees children as a way to leave a legacy, and he has expressed that he would pressure his children to have their own children so he can have grandchildren. I see children as an opportunity to learn and develop virtues, and I plan to give full autonomy to my children. I see my legacy through my work and the ideas I pass on to those who look up to me. He also has expressed how we would pass on gender expectations to his children. He would pierce his daughter's ears and dress her in ball gowns, I would fiercely oppose any body modifications without consent and believe in dressing children in comfortable clothes, allowing for play. I would have no issue if my child turns out to be girly, tomboy, or even transgender. Our backgrounds also lead to misunderstandings. I was raised in a wealthy Latin American household by extremely liberal parents, while he was also raised in Latin America, but his family is middle class. My background has pushed me to believe in smart work rather than hard work. As my parents made their wealth from social connections and strategic investment, he believes not in smart work but in hard work from rule following. He was raised to follow the rules and aim for traditional measurements of high achievement. I was raised with complete freedom to be autonomous, with no parental expectations, and with just support for my decisions. My parents even allowed me to homeschool myself with the support of great educators. This led me to an elite school, a 4.0 GPA in CS, and to build my own software company. I want to know how to approach a long-term relationship. On one hand, he recently turned 20, is still figuring things out, and is heavily reliant on his parents. He might grow to at least understand my outlook on life, which he currently respects but doesn't fully comprehend. Despite our love for each other, should I consider breaking up and finding someone who is a better fit? While he is a great partner in college, it would be a deal-breaker if he fails to understand my views, not necessarily share in the long term when we're contemplating marriage and children. For more context, I'm high-functioning autistic, and he is neurotypical. My partner and I currently share different values, which isn't a problem now, but might be in the future. Should we break up if these differences could become significant issues later on? Story: at an impasse with girlfriend about her education. What do I do? 26M and 26F. My girlfriend is really upset about her choice of schools and wants my help, but didn't apply and doesn't seem to be putting in effort. What do I do? My girlfriend is bright and driven, but deeply depressed and prone to shutdowns. She dropped out of art school as an upper junior a long time ago in the midst of family and personal chaos. Now, 6 years later, she's completed an associate's degree and wants to finish a bachelor's. The problem is that she doesn't like the only school that took her a high-quality but less exciting local public college. The problem isn't her grades. She graduated summa cum laude with glowing recommendations for multiple professors. I told her while she was applying that a full-time job plus a full course load and an internship would make it near impossible to make a good application anywhere. She chose to continue full throttle anyway and missed nearly every deadline. She specifically chose not to apply to the local Ivy League institution because it would be embarrassing, in her words. Now she is in tears every single day as she feels her potential is being wasted. It doesn't help that said public college has horrible bureaucracy and has messed up her credit evaluation. For the record, I agree that she could get into a better institution if she put her mind to it. She has been in deeper moments of crisis shouting at me and telling me I didn't help enough, but I just am not sure what I should have done without her giving herself the space to work on it. A few times I've suggested applying for the coming spring, but she just starts self-deprecating and shutting that down. She begs for help and accuses me of getting in the way of her dreams, but then turns down every specific offer of help. I am feeling really drained. I want to know what personal changes I can make to stop feeling so drained and support her better. When I began writing this, she was on her way out to the gym. She stopped right at the front door to turn around and complain about the school situation. This escalated into telling me how ugly she thought she was. I tried reassuring her, and she opened her phone and started going through pictures of herself from years ago to illustrate her point. This escalated into calling herself a failure with nowhere to go in the world, which then escalated into throwing her phone and making suicide jokes. Finally, I couldn't take it and had a panic attack, at which point her mood changed and she began kissing me all over, at which I could only cringe, and then left for the gym as if nothing had happened. This all took over 3 hours. There are of course many sides to every story. Here are the ways I give her a hard time. I am a teacher and the generic book-smart type. She has significant trauma with school, and especially with her father, who used to shake her and call her stupid. She really doesn't like my intellectual show-offy manner. I try to minimize this and talking about work in general, but I know that I haven't done enough. I could certainly be a better listener and better at responding to her when she spirals. I know that I am supposed to remain calm and reassuring, but it does hurt. The result is that I am at first robotic and then despondent. I just still haven't found the best way to be supportive. I myself have rather low self-confidence. I know this is really unattractive and not very healthy to be around. There is surely much more that I don't see about myself. How should I support her? To what extent should I be helping her? I can't start these applications for her, that would be a breach of ethics. But should I just accidentally do so anyway? This is important to me, and I want to make sure she has a good outcome. Story: feeling unappreciated and neglected in 6-year relationship, seeking advice. My fiancé is 35 years old and I am 29 years old, have been fighting more recently because his actions seem selfish. We've been together for over 6 years, but I feel like a broken record, constantly repeating myself without any change from him. I've asked him to learn how to cook and be more considerate in the bedroom. He doesn't cook at all, and when he tries, it's a disaster. In the bedroom, he always finishes, leaving me unsatisfied. Only recently has he started to clean up after himself because he was disgusted by his own bodily fluids. He hasn't matured much and still expects me to handle most things. When I went on a 6-month work trip, I hoped he'd learn to be more self-sufficient. Instead, he left the fridge untouched and didn't make any effort to cook, despite promising to make my favorite dishes. When I come home late from work in the gym, I often find him on the couch playing video games or watching TV, with nothing prepared. This frustrates me, especially since he doesn't take any initiative. Each year I've become more vocal about my needs and frustrations, which has led to more arguments. I feel like I'm talking to a toddler, reminding him to treat others how he wants to be treated. He often damages my things and tries to make up for it with money, but that doesn't solve the problem. I'm torn about whether to stay with him. My family loves him and I don't like to share anything bad about my relationships with anyone, even my friends. I can't imagine life without him, but I'm tired of feeling unappreciated and neglected. I'm seeking therapy to sort out my feelings and figure out the best path forward. I feel like I've tried everything and made every initiative. I'm tired of being sent memes in hopes of me forgiving him. I wish he'd stop apologizing and actually solve problems with me. My fiancés and I have been fighting more. I handle most of the chores and feel unappreciated. He doesn't take initiative in cooking or in the bedroom. Considering whether to stay with him and seeking therapy to sort out my feelings. Story: it's the 45th time within 2.5 months I started crying because I don't feel smart enough. Imposter. Hey, me 30 years old, am dating someone 22 years old since 2.5 months. Yes, the age difference was unexpected. I look younger, he looks older, so we both thought we are 25 on 26. But that's not the problem here. He is very genuine, rational, smart, active in society, etc. We met at some critical theory workshop in Berlin. I figured he won some national competition in sociology and is studying politics and philosophy. When we are together, except these situations when I start overthinking and then crying, we have the best time in our life. We vibe a lot, have the same sense of humor, trust each other, prefer STH more than vanilla, and I feel very comfortable by his side. But there is this one thing my therapists could not really help me with yet. So, he likes talking about philosophy and I learn a lot and love it. At the same time, when he says something and I don't have a smart answer, it already happened a few times that I started crying, fearing he would figure out sooner or later that I was not as knowledgeable as he was. More like average, but not a prodigy who reads as many books as he does, etc. I studied law, am doing my PhD and am very interested into philosophy and politics, but don't have so much time as to indulge super deep in it. I did have good grades, achieved quite some things, but BCPF childhood, which I apparently did not process completely yet. I think I only deserve love when successful and smart. When I cry, he is super kind and calms me down, saying I was smart and did not have to say anything. However, since it happened quite often now, he does say that he does not feel comfortable when it happens so often, which I totally get. I would question myself as well, if my partner was crying BC of me. Any advice on how to stop crying, regain my self-confidence? I am scared this will become a self-fulfilling prophecy and I will somehow fuck it up. Indeed, just today, when I cried again, I said, maybe I need a partner who is less smart, which, obviously, hurt him a lot. That he communicated clearly, saying it was not cool. I tend to do these things to protect me and rather fuck it up myself than to let somebody dump me, which is very psycho, I know, and I am scared it happened in the first place. I think I can control myself in not saying something similar like that again, especially since I don't want no other, but about the crying, I am not sure. My partner is very knowledgeable in philosophy and, from time to time, passionately tells me something about this topic. I find that fascinating, but at the same time, I start overthinking, thinking I don't know as much as he does and he will break up with me once he finds out imposter. Story: How to tell if my 25F partner 25M is emotionally or verbally abusive. I am 25 years old and starting to think that my relationship with 25 years old my boyfriend of about 1 year is not just toxic but abusive. He's always been quick to anger and a little jealous, but recently he's said and done things that are making me question my perceptions of myself and the relationship. I called a female friend recently who I hadn't spoken to in months, and we spoke for about 30 to 40 minutes catching up. He acted weird on the phone call and afterwards he exploded. He accused me of talking to her about other men and intentionally trying to cover the conversation. He said I locked the door to the bathroom, I was peeing. He said I turned the bedroom fan on so he couldn't hear. We turned the fan on to go to sleep and it was nearly 10 p.m. He said I left the room to hide the conversation. He was already in bed and I was trying to be respectful because he wakes up 3 hours before me. He refused to listen to my explanation. The next day he apologized profusely over text, which is a pattern in our relationship. Outbursts followed by long apologies the next day. Today, I worked a 10-hour shift while he was at home. I did a 50-hour week as my boss was out sick. I get home and I'm talking to him while opening the fridge and he goes past me and I accidentally shut the door on his hand that has a blister on it. Although his hand was fine, he turns to me and screams, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" in my face. I apologized and said although I was looking, I wasn't really seeing as my brain is fried and I'm tired. He proceeded to go off and then was even angrier when I was upset that he screamed in my face. He refused to apologize for that. That argument then derailed despite me trying to end it multiple times because it was no longer productive. We were just going in loops. I tried to turn and watch TV and he stood in front of the TV. I recorded part of our conversation. We're in a one-party consent state and in those 2 recordings, he called me a narcissist, a pathological liar, autistic, and an asshole. I want to upload those so people can hear his voice and the context because I'm really feeling insane right now, but I'm unsure if that's against this sub's rules. At one point, he realized I was recording and took my phone and threw it on the floor in the other room. I got up and got it and he seemed to back off from that once I told him me recording was legal in this state and that if he took my phone again, I would consider myself to be in actual danger and would leave. I've been thinking about leaving him, but it's hard as we live together. Now, I'm worried that I actually need to figure something out and quickly because I'm worried this is going to derail. He claims to love me and that I mean the world to him, but I once told him I wanted to break up and I'll never forget his response: "You deserve whatever I do honestly." My 25 years old, boyfriend 25 years old, and I fight a lot but I'm unsure if it's starting to become abusive. Story: Am I overreacting that my boyfriend doesn't propose to me? Me 31 years old and my partner 31 years old are together for 7 years now and we just bought our very first house last week. We have been together since we were 24 and we are not engaged and I don't know if he ever want to propose because he's not really talking about it. Even when I ask him we just arguing about it, so I never thought about marriage when I was younger, but then when we both turned like 26 to 27 I started to show interest about it and at the same time everybody around us, all our friends got engaged, had wedding, expected their first child etc. And I mentioned him that I want to get engaged before I turn 30. He never said anything. And I just kept repeating myself and he just kept saying nothing. I felt guilty and bad for mentioning and saying things like this to him because I didn't want to put pressure on him, but at the same time I wanted to know his thoughts and also let him know what I want. We were already saving up for deposit to buy a house and once he said that after we have the house we want he can buy a nice ring and propose, but right now he doesn't have £5,000 to spend on a ring. I already knew what ring I want and that doesn't cost that much and also I would never want him to buy me such an expensive ring anyway, so I told him this and I sent him the rings I like and I told him he can choose which one he wants to propose with. I just wanted him to know I don't expect anything expensive, I just want to see that he is serious too just like me. His answer was that if he wouldn't be serious he would not buy a house with me. This was like 2 years ago. Since that every holiday we go on, every night out together, every birthday, every family events we go together I think he'll do it, but nothing. People around us keep questioning him about it and he just says, "Oh, our plan is to buy a house first and then I can afford a ring," but it's not our plan, just his. But it's awkward for me and it makes me angry because I already told him I don't want expensive ring and I wanted to get engaged before 30. Every time we talk about this we just arguing. He gets offended because I say what I think and what I feel, and then he doesn't really speaks to me for days. I just realized that we don't want the same things from life, and it makes me sad. I'm 31 already and I don't want to say yes anymore to him because I feel he just ruined everything. I don't know what to do anymore because I can't have a serious conversation with him about this, and even if I would have one, I feel nothing would change. I don't want to propose to him, that's just not me, and he would not want that either. I think the communication between us is very, very bad, and I don't know how to fix it because I know if I mention this, he'll not talk to me. I just don't want to wait anymore, and I don't want to say yes anymore. And I hate this feeling. Even when I ask him, we just arguing about it. Story: my BF of 4 years told me to find someone else if I want something long term and that he doesn't believe in monogamy. I'm 26 years old. We've been together since I was 21 years old. He is now 31 years old. We've been together for 4 years in a monogamous relationship. I have a good job and have been stable since we met, running my own business. He had a stable job, then 2020 happened, and he hasn't been stable financially until the end of last year. We also live together. We were discussing the future, and I don't even necessarily want to get married, but a promise ring would be ideal. He brought up having children about a year ago, which I would like to have some form of commitment if we were to go ahead on the child situation. I grew up in a broken home, as did he, and I wouldn't like the same for my children ideally. I expressed worries of being a single mother, and he said, "You wouldn't be, we would co-parent, and you have family and friends, you would be fine." He said no to the promise ring and that he could see being with me for about 5 more years, maybe longer, but not long term. He told me, if you want to be with someone forever, you should go be with someone else. Which was very painful because this has been the longest relationship in my adult life. Apparently, he doesn't believe in monogamy, which is what I thought our relationship has been since the beginning. A lot of confusion with that because now I question if the last nearly 5 years I've been with this person was even real. I don't want to feel like a burden, and I don't know why he ever asked me to be his girlfriend if he doesn't believe in that kind of thing anyways. I'm just truly confused because it didn't feel like I was speaking to him, just a stranger or something. A rug has been pulled out from under me. We never fight or have conflict, and usually things are good, but I can't ignore this conversation. I feel hurt and duped, to be honest. Even in times of emotional need, he tells me to go to therapy instead of offering comfort. I feel that things went great up until the last year because I've had a lot of unexpected, uncontrollable situations that have been putting a strain on my happiness, not regarding the relationship, and everything hasn't been sunshine and rainbows. I'm at a loss. This has been a huge slap in the face. I thought we were on the same page up until now, especially when he brought up children. Is it so crazy to ask for a little commitment? Or delusional to want to grow old and have romance together? He's not much of a romance guy. I'm pretty sure he's just comfortable and not deeply in love with me. I could use some advice. My boyfriend of 4 years doesn't believe in monogamy despite our monogamous relationship and told me to go be with someone else if I want something long term. Super confused because he brought up wanting children with me. I never asked for that or marriage. Story: I, 38 am so exhausted, depressed, and beat down from never feeling attractive enough, even to my wife, 38F. How can I beat this feeling? I'm 38 years old, around 175 pounds, and right around 6 feet tall. I run and lift fairly regularly, and eat relatively healthy. I feel like maybe I could work on my midsection a little more, but I'm still in light athletic shape. I feel like I'm pretty average and plain in the face and maybe look a little young for my age. In the last few years, I've really invested time and money in skincare and think it has paid off. I get fairly expensive haircuts every month or two to keep looking nice. And yet after all of that, I am still so insecure about my appearance. I look in the mirror and I just never like what I see. No matter how much I work out, no matter how well I dress, no matter how much time I spend with different hair and skincare products, I still feel like there's just something about me that's off, and still never good enough. Like I just look a little goofy and just a little out of the ordinary, as if there's a little something unexplainable that puts me into some weird territory. Part of what makes me think this is that I don't feel like there's ever any external cues to let me know that all of my work in taking care of myself is paying off. My wife doesn't pay me that much attention. I never ever get compliments from anyone on how I dress or how much working out has paid off. When I am by myself in public, women never give me a second glance. There's just so much that tells me that I am just not enough when it comes to this. I know that a lot of people will say that attractiveness comes from other things as well. How funny a person is, how charismatic they are, stuff like that. I am feeling fairly confident about that too. I am a little shy and introverted until I get to know someone, but after that I feel fairly sure that I am charming and funny and caring for people. I just don't get it. I wish there was anything at all to tell me that I had some worth in terms of my appearance. Not having anything to go on makes me doubt myself and even hate myself at times. I know that things like this are supposed to come from within, but I feel like if I am only ever telling myself that and no one outside of my own biases ever tells me anything, it's just a delusion on my part. Story: should I break up with my girlfriend? Hey, so this is complicated, but I will try to keep it simple. I am 27 years old, and about 3 months ago, I met 27 years old a girl and we hit it off right away. For some background, she is one of the first real relationships I ever had, and I am used to being alone and mostly just keeping to myself. I live with my mom and enjoy video games, anime, and all things nerdy, so I'm that type of guy. Needless to say, this is all new to me, and she also has 2 kids and an ex-husband, all of which she was upfront with me about. For the first few months everything was amazing, especially the S word. We were so passionate and I grew to really care for her and her kids, who in retrospect I may have met too early on. Anyway, I got sick recently and she has been going through a lot too, planning this party for her and her family. She texted me today saying that she wanted space and is going through a lot, and I assumed that meant I could get out of driving the hour and a half to her house to go to the family party, and sadly, that made me happy. The reason I say sadly that made me happy is because I feel guilty and bad that I was happy I had a chance to bail on that. Anyway, we had a long conversation tonight and I kinda told her I feel like we are rushing and I'm not ready for the commitment of everything due to some of the stuff I said in the first paragraph, how I am used to being a loner homebody. But she has been nothing but amazing and nice to me, and even helped me come out of my shell a bit. Even still, I can't help but think that eventually I will want to break up, because someday she will want to move in together and have me take a big responsibility role with the kids, and I don't know if I will ever be ready for it. I expressed the exact paragraph above pretty much word for word to her, and she will says she wants to stay together and to not worry about the future and live in the moment. I tried to get her to break up with me, I guess, by making it clear I wasn't sure if we were going to last forever and wasn't ready for a long-term commitment. She has kids and other drama. She instead said she loves me and wants us to work out, making me think she is a prize and it would be selfish and I would regret it if we broke up, because the only reason I want to is just so I can go back to gaming all the time and doing whatever the hell I want. And I don't think that's a good enough reason, because overall she really does care about me, and I know for a fact a girl like that is hard to find because she is amazing, so I may regret it later if I end things. Story: my husband told me he also loves someone else. My husband, Grant, 33 male, and I, 30 female, have been together for 12 years, married 3. We originally were living in my home state, but moved to his after his parents' health started to take a decline. We've been living here for several years now. In that time I met a girl, 26 female, at work about 3 years into us moving, and after bringing her around me, my husband and her were all friends. We had a period where we didn't talk with her for maybe 2 years due to issues in our relationship, with how my work was going, and her with a toxic friend group. TBF, we should have stayed and helped her out, but my husband and I were having a tough time barely seeing each other. Eventually we reconnected at the beginning of the year, and we would bring her out of her house to hang out and let her decompress from home life. A few months ago I noticed Grant was a lot more silent than normal, barely texting when we were at work and being somewhat physically distant. I eventually asked him what was wrong, and he said he was going through some mental issues. We both are diagnosed depressed, so I thought it stemmed from that. We made up, but there's still a very subtle hint of tension. When hanging or chatting in person, Grant is reserved, not as much in chat but definitely in person. I noticed in our friend chat he was the one more likely to initiate conversation than when it was just us, and I thought he was just trying to help keep her occupied. He initiated hangouts, which was weird because we were both homebodies. It started to nag at me when we would all hang out, and he would buy things for her too. I'm the one in the friend work group that people go to for advice, so I tend to pick up on things more than others, and about a month ago it sort of dawned on me that there was more than friendship there, at least from him. Recently, Grant was even more in his thoughts, and it was concerning me. I eventually got him to start talking, and at first he was very vague, and kept insisting he loved me. I didn't doubt that, but I had to guess he had feelings for someone, and guess again it was our friend. My heart sank when he acknowledged it, because it seemed like at first he couldn't admit it to himself. He eventually told me that he sort of figured it out when I confronted him about the distance, and had been battling with himself on how to tell me. He did insist he did not love me less, but loves her the same as me. I'll be honest, I'm probably still in shock and I'm not sure how to process. I feel like I should have been mad when he told me, but I can't bring myself to be. I'm not mad at her because she doesn't know. She's also in a relationship of her own and has never really expressed interest in anybody but the person she's with. And I understand people can love differently and the same for different people, we both just didn't think we would have to deal with this. I'm just not sure how to proceed. This man is the love of my life, and I don't think I can feel the same way I do for him as someone else. Leaving him isn't an option for me, I just need a way to navigate this.